May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Home. What does it mean to find a place that we call home? Is it some place that we feel safe and comfortable? Perhaps it's filled with the aroma of baking bread or chocolate chip cookies, or for my husband, a side of roast beef. Or half a side, I don't know, half a pound maybe, anyway. Well, what does it look like? Are there comfortable things laying around? Maybe a worn piece of furniture that fits your body perfectly? Maybe a rocking chair, or a favorite blanket, or a pet waiting at the door as you come home. What does home look like to you? Well, this is one of the places that I called home. Notice the totally red 62 Corvair Monza. Please notice that. That was my car. We moved to this house in Eugene when I was in 5th grade. It was up in the hills to the south part of the town, and you can see it was surrounded by a forest of Douglas fir. I lived there with my parents, Richard and Patsy, and my brother Jim, my sisters Sally and Sue. Our last name was Stratton. My parents had a sense of humor. Sue, Sally, and Sandy Stratton, yeah. But this was my safe place, right? I felt cared for, I felt loved. And when life got tough, I always knew I could go home and would be comforted. But then I learned as a young woman that home doesn't always stay that way. After my parents' divorce and I graduated college, I found myself looking for a new place that I could call home. Roommates began to be home. Apartment dwelling was, in fact, the coolest thing ever. Being on my own held excitement and freedom. And as time went on, home took on new meaning as I met and married JJ and we started our own family. The responsibility of creating home for my children became the focus. And as we grow older, home begins to look differently, doesn't it? A little different for all of us. You'll see here that some of the homes are larger than others. Some sit on top of a mountain. Some are down in the valley. Some homes used to have wheels. Some have deep foundations. No matter the size of your home, the location, or when or where it was built, each home is unique for each of us. Yes, I creeped around town yesterday and took pictures of a bunch of your houses. And nobody caught me. I don't think you did. But each one a little bit different. Did you see your house? View of you? All right. Well, unfortunately, the concept of home doesn't always bring warm, fuzzy memories. Sometimes home is a danger zone where abuse and neglect run rampant. Many are left dealing with lifelong memories of how home failed them. But thankfully, that isn't the end of the story. You see, sisters and brothers, with Jesus, there is hope. And the home that we're talking about today and throughout this series is the home that each of us find in Jesus Christ. You see, the comfort and security that we find home isn't just the physical manifestation of home. Home is where we find safety and love and comfort. It's where we meet Jesus and are reminded that with Jesus, everything will be all right. Many years ago, when JJ and I moved to Las Vegas, we found Trinity United Methodist Church to be our home. We were living here without the support of family or friends, and we realized that it was through Christian community that we would find Jesus' family and the home that he intended for us, to sustain us through the tough times and to rejoice in the good. You see, Jesus sacrificed himself for us, to save us from ourselves and to remind us that we are all part of God's family. We all have a home with Jesus. And this morning's scripture reminds us of that so beautifully. It's a familiar one. We could probably say it in our sleep. Maybe some of you have. The resurrection of Jesus is where the search for home begins. Mary Magdalene and Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other women went to the tomb early that Sunday morning. They were there to finish what they had been unable to complete after Jesus' death. They went with spices to complete the burial process. And when they arrived, they found the stone had been rolled away. The tomb in the side of the mountain was empty. Scripture says the women were perplexed. Well, I would imagine so. Unable to wrap their minds around what they were seeing, they were startled to see two men in dazzling attire. Angels sent to deliver an important message. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you, the angel said, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again. And hearing this, they were reminded of Jesus' prediction about his death, and they ran back to tell the others what they had seen and heard. Not surprisingly, the others didn't believe them. Not because they were women or unreliable, but because their story was so far-fetched. What do you mean the tomb was empty? And as Peter and the others ran back to the tomb, I suspect they began to remember that Jesus had predicted this very thing. He would be put to death, and he would raise from the dead. And then they remembered more. During the Passover feast that they had celebrated together, Jesus had warned them of what was to come. And he told them that after he was raised from the dead, they were to go ahead of him to Galilee, and he would meet them there. Galilee. That was their home. That was where Jesus' ministry began. This is where the disciples lived and fished, and where Jesus found them. Galilee was their home. And following the resurrection, Christ instructed the disciples to return there and to wait for Jesus to appear. And they did, and he did also. Resurrection complete. Now, I don't know if you have noticed, but there is resurrection happening all around us. The fire that swept through Notre Dame on Monday night was a death for certain. But through the destruction, there is new life. Do you see the cross in the middle of this destruction? There is new life. The remains demonstrate the hope of new life that will rise from the ashes. All across our United Methodist Church, we have felt a death of sorts. And we know that we are in a period of darkness as we wait for resurrection. Perhaps it will come this week with the Judicial Council that's meeting and their decision, but we know that resurrection will come. Jesus has demonstrated how death is not the end, but it's a time to grieve and a time to experience the suffering before the miracle of resurrection takes place. You see, we see resurrection in those caught in addiction who experience a death to self and a period of suffering and darkness. Those who find their way to sobriety are resurrected. New life abounds with hope and grace. This very season that we're in demonstrates resurrection. The world around us in the fall dies, and the leaves represent the death. Throughout the winter months, darkness fills our world, and for some, depression and hopelessness comes. Time in the tomb is necessary for the resurrection each spring, when the buds come out and remind us that death is not the end. Jesus wants us to remember from his resurrection that it is the symbol we hold on to, that we too have received eternal life, that we who follow Christ are saved by his grace, the grace that he demonstrated to us on the cross, to take on the sins of the world so that we might live in grace forever. But we must also embrace our own resurrections. Our own resurrection brings us home. Resurrection brings us to new life. And with resurrection, sisters and brothers, there is hope, because suffering is not the end of the story. I'd like to share one final story. Jane Sharp, I think she's back with the children, she shared this story with me yesterday. You all remember a former student of hers that she had asked us to pray for. She had been diagnosed with cancer and found she was pregnant and had a very difficult decision to make about her health care and the health of her baby. Well, this week, things turned for the worse. And this dear former student of Jane's developed pneumonia on Sunday. And on Monday, they realized that the baby had died. They had to induce and deliver this tiny 1-pound baby. And thanks to the hospital chaplain, they were able to have a simple ceremony for the parents and for the family to say their goodbyes. The grandmother wrote to Jane, "While we mourn the child and grandchild that was not to be, we are thankful to the little angel who came into this world to get the baby's mom to the doctor." You see, because of the pregnancy, she was diagnosed with the cancer. And that next day, when the mom was having her blood tested, it was discovered that she had a new antibody in her blood. And the doctors are convinced it was from the baby that she had lost. This new antibody will help her to battle the cancer and to prepare her for bone marrow transplant, which is the next step on her cancer journey. You see, this beautiful young woman, devastated by loss, is experiencing her own suffering, death, and resurrection. Her resurrection is truly a miracle. In the darkest of times, when hope seems lost, that is when we must endure the suffering and the darkness of Friday and Saturday, because we know that Sunday is coming. You see, Jesus has gone ahead of us, hasn't he? And he's inviting us to this place that he calls home, a home with him. And because of resurrection, we have second chances and third chances and 45th chances and 192 chances, because we have a Savior who forgives us our sins, who gives us the courage to endure the darkness of the tomb, because we know that the sunshine of Easter morning is coming. And the brilliance of Easter morning is here today. And this Easter morning is the most fantastic day of our entire year, perhaps of our entire life, if we will allow it. All of the ashes of disaster comes the new life in Christ Jesus. Wouldn't you like to find a place to call home? You might find Christ's home in churches and communities all around us. Perhaps you'll find a place to call home right here at Boulder City United Methodist Church. Wherever you are in your relationship with Jesus Christ, find your place to call home. And let today be the start of your own personal resurrection as you seek to find a place to call home.